What's up, guys? Welcome to Roensch Capital Charts. Today we're taking a look at Tesla, ticker symbol TSLA, on a variety of time frames in anticipation of tomorrow's trading day, Thursday, February 1st. Tesla stock here today down about 2.25%, 4.3, well, really 4 points and 30 cents. Big pump off the open, actually continued upside throughout the day. Once we finally got into kind of FOMC time, we got a little bit of additional volatility and then a bit of a fade. We actually pumped up to test 194 and then ended up fading down about 3.5% into the close. One thing I do want to show you guys, take a look here. Really clean scalp setups forming within this region here, within this channel. You see these EMAs, and then this here is the volume weighted average price. This is a 2 standard deviation band to the upside. I kind of coined that as volume weighted average price resistance. Of course, you can really only call it that on setups that are clean on that particular setup on that particular day, right? But these are setups that I'm scanning for every single day. Sent out alert today on Tesla, worked out beautifully. If you would like to receive those, that link will be in the pinned comment to join our Roensch Capital Gold server. But listen, you know, I try to make very well known, you can absolutely learn how to trade for free. You don't need to buy anything from anyone. I developed my playbook for absolutely free. It took time. It took a lot of trial and error, but it's certainly possible, and I learned a lot along the way doing so. But for those of you who have maybe a little bit of extra resources, you're looking to expedite that process a little bit, I think you'll find it very helpful. Let's move on here to the 5-minute time frame, or the 5-minute chart more so, and take a look here. You can see very consistent grind higher off of that 20 EMA. A lot of psychological movement going on today. The volume on the immediate pump, of course, that's off the open, so we expect that to be high. But it was very high volume on the upside move. And then later in the day, of course, we did see volume increase during FOMC and after FOMC while Powell was speaking. That is certainly not unexpected, but just be aware. Remember, when you're looking for moves in your favor, you want that happening on as high a volume as possible. And when moves go against your personal sentiment, you want that occurring ideally on as low a volume as possible. But let's get a little bit more context here by looking at the 30-minute chart. We can go ahead and delete that. I'm not sure what that's doing there. And we get a lot more here. So look, the 50 period and the 200 period, the white line and gray lines respectively, I of course have on here because they're so popular. There's many eyeballs on those charts. So today now, we have that 200 period acting as an area of resistance here. And the 50 period, you know, off the open this morning, it did act somewhat as a resistance. We ended up breaking that. Yesterday, we saw that acting as a support. The day prior to that, we saw it as a support. The day before that, resistance. So listen, clearly the 50 period is in play. The 200 period is also in play because they are now close together. That 50 sitting right about 189.25. That 200 sitting right around 182 or 192, 192.25. So I'm going to be watching both of these extremely closely here on the 30-minute chart on Tesla stock tomorrow. Of course, if you're a bull, the ideal scenario would be to get above both of these, not just the 50 period, although that would be great, but also ideally reclaim the 200 period as a support level here tomorrow. That could open up some open sky, at least on this particular chart, up to $200 a share, which is obviously a huge psychological level. Now, if you're bearish on Tesla right now, you know, it's pretty obvious for you. We're currently below both of these on the 30-minute, so you're looking to just hold the 50 period as a potential area of resistance and continue to let that thing push us further to the downside. That's what a bear would be looking for here on the 30-minute on Tesla. Let's zoom out now to the 4-hour. You can see here that we have the 50 period on the 4-hour is the only one that's really immediately relevant. The 200 is still up by 231. But what's interesting about the 30-minute chart here on Tesla is that you have that 50 period just now breaking downside below $200 a share. So ideally making our way up and testing that, you know, granted currently that is about a 5 or 6% move away, but we've seen crazier things on Tesla stock. Looking at that here, if you're a bear, you want to see that reject along with $200 a share, the huge psychological level. But if you're bullish, ideally in the next day or two, or just as soon as possible here, making our way back upside. Understand, I say the next day or two, but it is a 5.5–6% move away. That's kind of a lot to ask, but just reclaiming that 50 period and the $200 psychological area here on Tesla as quickly as possible, looking specifically at the 4-hour, that is. But of course, the $200 psychological level is going to be relevant across all time frames. It's really obvious here, so let's just point this out now. We've been paying very close attention to 177.50 to 180 as a potential safety net area of support, so also keeping an eye on that. Let's go ahead and zoom out now to probably the most important chart, which is going to be the daily chart. Of course, the 177.50 to 180 region becomes highly obvious once we pull up this chart. The moving averages, the 50-day and the 200-day, while they are lining up, those are way up near 232, so not immediately relevant. Really, here on the daily chart, to me, this forms a big channel between 177.50 and 180, and then up at that $200 psychological area. So that would be the channel I'm looking for. Of course, if you're a bull, you want to see that bottom hold and the top break up. And if you're a bear, you'd ideally want to see that top hold as resistance and the bottom break downside, okay? Volume, pretty average. It's actually, I actually see that as a relatively good thing, because if you were bullish and this volume was like averaging 200 million shares a day down in this new region, we've now since faded off to about 100 million shares a day. With that high of volume, like 150, 200 million averaging every day down in this new region below $200 a share, that might be a concerning sample size. When it's going against your bias, you want that sample size as low as possible. Implied volatility actually tanking off here after earnings, which was not unexpected. We talked about how we expected to see that. So you may have experienced a little bit of IV crush if you had bought options kind of in this region here in the last couple of days, let's say, last week or two. Well, let me rephrase that. Really any time in 2 weeks leading up to earnings, because after earnings, of course, is when we started to get that fall in IV. But listen, the lower that goes, the more opportunity for potential IV pump comes to the table for new options buyers. Okay, let's take a look now at the options chain, see what the traders are thinking as we head into tomorrow. Beautiful sample size here, 2.04 million total contracts traded. 886,000 of those were calls. 1.16 million approximately of those were puts here today. So the overall call put ratio we are seeing leaning a little bearish, but if we come down here to the short-term speculators, that 0 to 20 delta, we're seeing 313,000 calls and 283,000 puts. So the shorter term speculation, like the cheapy, out of the money, shortest dated contracts, we're seeing those speculators actually leaning slightly bullish, which is interesting. Hey, listen, for future Tesla stock updates, please subscribe to the channel. Helps out a lot, and I'll see you in the next one.